Boom. Awesome. Hey, everybody. And to those watching the recording, to those folks on YouTube, however you may be coming across this at any point, hope you're doing well. And hey, everybody on the call. It is March 22nd. The year is 2023. And we are kicking off week 6 of ZK Ignite cohort 1, which is super exciting. I can't believe it's been 6 weeks already. This week is all about crowd voting and also opening up the floor for anybody that would like to give feedback, which would be really helpful. I guess we'll go ahead and get into it. But first, as we do, I just want to say congratulations to everybody who has submitted a proposal. I think I have a slide here. Yes, we have a slide. Congratulations to everybody who submitted a proposal. I know it's a lot of effort and energy and concentration and generosity that has gone on the process of creating your own proposal, but also giving feedback and also commenting and helping other people along the way. It's been a long journey over the past just 6 weeks, but we just want to say congratulations. Even, regardless of how the voting turns out, this would not have been possible without all of the energy and that kind of giving attitude that people have brought to this from day one. And it's been really, it's been really motivating and inspiring to kind of sit on the sidelines as a facilitator and watch it all happen. So I want everybody to kind of, whether you're here or not or watching later, just like massive shout out to you, and really, really excited to see how this evolves. Okay, we're gonna cover just like what the elector and voting process looks like. We'll also cover the Mina improvement. We're gonna do a quick shout out to the Mina improvement proposals process, which is unrelated specifically from ZK Ignite, but very, very important for the Mina protocol and community governance going forward. We're going to give at the very beginning, we're going to talk about office hours, and we've got some exciting evolution of office hours that's coming, and then we're going to leave the last 30 minutes or so for anybody to give feedback while it's still fresh at the end of this proposal phase, as we are already thinking about cohort 2 and planning, and anything that you guys can share would be really, really helpful. Okay. Final stats. This blows me away. 106 proposals for ZK apps, 62 proposals for dev. You guys already knew that number, but the amazing statistic here is almost 900 comments between the two tracks together, which is just way beyond the expectation of when we were getting started. And again, I just want to give a huge shout out to everybody who was commenting not only on their own proposal, but on other people's proposals and helping other people kind of get to the best state possible before the final deadline. It was an absolute collaborative effort, and the numbers reflect here. It's, for any, I think any ecosystem, big or small, would be really proud of these numbers. And especially as this is cohort 1 and we're kicking this off, I just find it extremely encouraging. And it tells me that, ZK apps are coming, and they're coming in force. And even, not every proposal can get funded as part of cohort 1, but cohort 2, cohort 3, when we look back a number of years at this, I think this is that moment. This is the kind of seeds that we wanted to sow in the ZK app ecosystem. And so I just want to, again, give a huge shout out to all of you. Let's get some love in the chat. Let's get some energy. This is what we came here to do. And so far we've done it. When we're talking about this Cambrian explosion at the very beginning in week 1, we were talking about avoiding just this siloed traditional process of people kind of thinking about things on their own, applying for a grant, getting a grant, and going off and building. And that's not what kind of millions and millions of years ago created a diverse ecosystem, right? And we're using this analogy again and again, but we really do think it's because of this cross-pollination, and it's because of this giving and things bouncing around in an experimental environment is what is going to create the most robust ecosystem in the future. diversity is what it takes to get there. And so again, like when we go back to just looking at these comments, this is our plan to make it happen. And so far, I would say every single person here has risen to that challenge. I also just want to give out, this is kind of our comment leaderboard for cohort 1. These were the kind of like at the end, as of yesterday, these were the top comment stats. And so there are some familiar names on here, and everybody who commented belongs on this list. But when we're thinking about just top commenters throughout the program, this is how it kind of came out. And so I want to give another shout out to Joingle Mir, Fab AI, Kartik 45930, Just Do EK, Fust Fashion, I Am Dev, Rashid, Borai, and 0x Dead. Again, that list could go on and on, but just from these 10 folks on the call here, I think, or on the slide here, I think it came out to about 300 comments between the group. So especially thank you to you guys for going above and beyond. And I also, at this point, want to give a shout out to all of the electors who, as part of the feedback process, we're making an extra effort to put really thoughtful comments into your proposals, so you had a chance to revise them, respond to those comments, and ultimately like give your proposal the best shot possible to getting funded. And so we're keeping the elector names are anonymous as a whole, but electors, you know who you are, and we just really appreciate you going above and beyond as well when it came to giving that feedback and being generous with those proposals. Okay, really quickly, I'm going to pass it over to Dylan to talk about this next iteration of office hours. And yeah, I think Dylan, am I passing it to you?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Will. We're excited to kick off a set of office hours starting on Friday and Friday, March 24th, with additional opportunities coming in the upcoming weeks. So this will feature builders and investors and will hopefully be a great opportunity for you all to bounce questions. Feel free to ask anything on use cases, business model, fundraising, but please be mindful that these are external parties and may not know the specific details of the Mina blockchain or of ZK Ignite. But please use this opportunity to further your understanding of the market or your project's potential, or just any real questions that you have on that side. So unfortunately, there is limited availability as it requires one-on-one attention, but we will be providing many other opportunities to sign up, mostly within April. So for the first one, we'll be sending out a sign-up link for our first office hour shortly after this meeting, and it'll be on a first-come, first-served basis. The structure may vary for each, but the general structure will be a 15-minute one-on-one session with the office hour host. Hopefully this is useful for everyone as you continue to build, and I'll pass it on to you again, Will.
Thanks, Dylan. And I for those who may have, sorry, Dylan, I didn't tee you up with the right intro. Dylan is our BD and ecosystem director for Mina Foundation. And when we say office hours, in this case, we're talking about specifically with VC partners. And so, or VC firms within the Mina ecosystem. So one of the things that we're going to be moving towards doing, especially during the build phase, some will be open, some will be for funded. The projects that get funded will be doing office hours with VCs, and we'll be ramping that up as the cohort goes on. So this first one is on Friday, and Dylan is busy at work making sure that all of the investors within the ecosystem are well aware of the projects that are kind of happening within ZK Ignite. Because not only is the cohort funding meant to kick people off, but in an ideal world, for the business, for the projects that want to become businesses, making sure that you have the resources and the connections to the right parties as well is going to be a big focus of ours as we move into the build phase. So thanks, Dylan. Okay, the next part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about electors, and I'm going to talk about the voting process. It might get a little dense, but again, this is recorded, and also we have a funding FAQ that's available on the website that goes into same amount of detail. Some of these slides are also repeats of weeks 1 and 2. And these slides are also repetitive of what when we onboarded our elector teams, the slides that they saw. So as just to kind of like reset, electors are the folks that are making the funding decisions over the next 2 weeks. And we have 15 electors for each track. So we have 15 electors for the Dev for Dev track, and we have 15 electors for the ZK app track. And when, I think the important thing and the important kind of why when we're thinking about this model is we want to experiment in representative democracy. And what does that mean? It means that the electors in each of these cases are actually the end users, or the kind of like end recipients of the proposals that are being, or the projects that are being proposed. And what I mean by that is, ZK app electors are putting on the ZK app user hat, and they're voting based off of, if they were to be the recipient of, someone who's using these apps, or, participating in these projects that are being built. Similar with the Dev for Dev track, the electors are developers within the ZK app ecosystem who are dependent and are depending on these tools and services that are getting built. And so when we say representative democracy, we mean the people who are going to be benefiting, or the people who are going to be impacted by these projects, are the ones that are making these decisions. And like I said, electors have actually been, there's many people on this call who are electors. They've been active throughout this whole process. And so I don't mean to say that it's, electors are some faraway group behind a wall. They're from within this ecosystem. But this is our first, cohort where we're really trusting in this process, and there will be lots of things that we learn along the way. It won't be perfect, but we're really excited to kind of experiment with you all and see how this goes over the next couple of weeks, especially given all of the thought, energy, and kind of effort that you all have put in to the proposals over the past couple of weeks too. Okay, so each elector, if we have a 250K USDC budget, each elector is going to be allocated 16,667 to allocate. And over the next 2 weeks, they will be choosing which projects to fund, but which projects actually, who funds what, will be completely anonymous. So if you've submitted a proposal, you might see your funding amount go up or go down over the next 2 weeks. It won't be final until the very, very end, because there's going to be, again, like a kind of fluid voting process over the next 2 weeks. But you won't be able to see who is funding what. That part is anonymous, and is even anonymous within the elector group. We're going to have kind of 2 rounds of voting, but the important thing in terms of a proposer is that the winners will be announced on April 5th. We've actually just extended that date. It was April 3rd, but we've just extended it given the volume of proposals. So the winners will be announced on April 5th. And any results that you see on the platform will not be final until the winner's announcement. The reason that I'm saying that we're saying this is because there's actually multiple rounds of voting. And because this is the first time we're doing it, and this is a new experiment when it comes to crowd voting and group allocation, there's going to be many instances in which electors want to fund the same projects. And they will be going forth and, actually inputting their funds on specific projects, but there's no perfect coordination mechanism. We don't know the perfect coordination mechanism yet. And so there will be some instances in which projects get overfunded, in which case the electors might want to reallocate their budget. There might be some instances in which projects don't get as much funding because electors are assuming other people will fund it. And so our rationale for having 2 rounds is basically having kind of a draft round, having kind of a snapshot, having the electors, giving them an opportunity to coordinate and have meetings. And then on the other side, having a final round where they're able to reallocate in some cases if there's an area or a focus where they're really focused on that they actually think wasn't getting enough attention from the first round, or if there's too many funds are concentrated in one specific area, and they think that, there's a need to kind of redistribute. We don't exactly know how this is going to go, but the main thing is that the voting will not be final until we announce it. So I know this is a little bit, if I was sitting in a proposer's seat right now, I would see, I could see it being a bit of an emotional roller coaster over the next couple of weeks if you see your amount go down and see your amount go up. And that's all feedback that we want to take on board as we go through this process. But for now, like, our ask is that you're with us over the next couple of weeks, and you give feedback as we go, but to not take any results final until April 5th when we announce it. There's a couple more slides that I have around, like, specifically how that works. For example, if a project's overfunded or underfunded, and I'm going to provide an example, but I just want to stop in the chat to see if there's any questions. Okay. Okay, I see. Yes. Okay. So I see a question from Patrick. I'll address that in an upcoming slide. And then I see a question from Derek. Proposals don't need to be fully funded to be greenlit, right? One of the things I missed adjusting was proposal and budget. Unfortunately, yes, that is, like, I'll talk about this in the next slide, but you have to hit your threshold in order to get funding. Partial funding does not allocate funds, because then we don't have any milestones to be able to judge on. Mario, will electors ask questions to participants about their proposals during this voting period? We are going to open comments back up, so there can be ongoing dialogue. So if you do get more questions, yes, you're able to announce them. However, the proposal and the milestones are still going to be marked as final. If there would be an agreement to for example, for anything to be adjusted, then ultimately it's the elector's final decision, but the proposal still will be locked. I am Dev asks, are we able to see in the process who is to get temporary funding? Yes, you'll be able to see which projects are funded throughout the process. So it's on each proposal, there'll be a funding counter that shows the current status, and that will be public. That being said, again, like, that can change up until the last minute, and I know that might be a little heart-wrenching. So just please keep in mind, even if the number says you're funded, until the final deadline, results are not final. Okay, I have a lot of words on the next slide, so I'm just going to talk through it because this concept is a little bit tricky. But if anyone has any questions, we can talk through right now as well. And I want to make sure that everybody feels confident that they understand how this works in advance. These slides will also be sent out, so we have it in writing as well. Okay, so no project will be funded. So what happens if a project is overfunded? This also applies to what happens if a project is underfunded. But no project will be funded greater than the requested budget. Similarly, if they don't come into that budget, if they come in under that budget, they won't be funded. So you have to at least hit your minimum budget. And then if you're funded over that amount, basically the takeaway is that you're only funded either at the standard or at the advanced. There's no kind of surplus funding or additional funding beyond the amounts that you've requested. Because electors are constantly changing and allocating, and there are 15 of them, so inevitably there will be some maybe challenges with coordination. There will be some cases where projects, let's just say if projects come in over their funded amount. In this case, the funding amount, I'll just read it here. If the funding amount exceeds the requested budget, the excess funding is put as surplus pot. We then create a priority list of projects in order of closeness to their funding target, whether that is standard or advanced. It's both applicable. And then the surplus pot is allocated in that order by dollar figure. So I'm going to give an example on the next slide, but the other thing to call out here is the minimum threshold to be included in the priority list, meaning you have access to the surplus funds, is to have at least 5K in funding by the final deadline allocated by electors. So I know that that's confusing, so I'm going to walk through just an example here. In this case, there's a standard budget and an advanced budget. The actual funded amount so the standard budget is 10K, the advanced budget is 25K, and the actual funded amount is 14K. In this case, the builder, if this was the final, deadline comes April 3rd, and this is the final amount, and it says there that they've received 14K in funding, the builder will receive 10K, and the additional 4K will be added to the surplus pool. The builder then will be added to the priority list and ranked in order of closeness to budget. In this case, they would be, the next closest, their next target is the advanced budget, which is 25,000, which means they are 11,000 away. So that would mean any projects that would miss their own funding targets by 10,000 or less will receive funding first. They'll be in that priority order first, as long as that to that point they've received up to 5K. So it means that electors have already signaled interest in that project. This applies, if someone was, if you were to come in at 9,000 and your standard budget is 10,000, then you would be higher up in the queue to receive that order. And what we'll do as soon as the results are final is the list will be completely transparent in terms of who is close to budget and how that surplus fund is calculated. We'll go just down the list in that order, again, with the minimum threshold being having been funded at least 5K. I'm going to go. Okay, so then next I'm going to talk about revisit the relationship between the USDC funding and the Mina funding. But I want to stop there to see if there are any other questions when it comes to this process specifically. Okay, I see some. Yes, okay, thanks, Patrick. Maybe I'll also just take this time. If you can see, can you still see my screen? I'm just going to take this time to show you. Okay, can you see?
Yeah, well, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So this is just a demo track, but I want to show you exactly what the electors are going to see when they go through this process. And I specifically have fake projects in here. So if this is from the view of the elector, and again, just so everyone can see what their view will be, they will click into a proposal. And this is the elector view of how they're going to go about funding. So on the right-hand side, you have this box, which is total funded. The total funded amount is what everyone will see, whether you're an elector or not. And this counts for how much this project has been funded to date. And so in this case, if this was a real proposal, someone would have already allocated, someone or multiple people would have already allocated a total of 5,000 USDC here. Your funding budget is how much you are allocating as an elector to this specific project. And then your account balance, and this is showing as if it would be real, is 16,667. So in this case, if I was an elector and I thought that this was a good project, I can see here on the top left that there's a standard budget. I can see that there's an advanced budget. And in this case, I would say, okay, I really like this project and I want to make sure that they get to their standard budget. And so I see that they're 5,000 now. I'm going to allocate 5,000 of mine. I'll click fund now. The total funded amount, the public visibility would go up to 10,000. As an elector, I could then see that I've funded this up to 5,000, and then my account balance would then drop down to 11,667. Again, that the total 16,667 being 1/15 of the total USDC budget. If we go back to the page, you can see here, again, this is the view. An elector will be able to see which projects they've funded. As you can see, given the amount of proposals that we have, there's a chance, there's a very, very good chance that they will decide to fund some, reallocate their funding based off of other funding decisions that have been made, or maybe having seen a new proposal that they actually want to reallocate to. So that's why I just want to reemphasize that if you see this number go up and go down, I know again, like I can't overemphasize how I really appreciate that's going to be a hard thing to watch and over the next couple of weeks, but it's not final until the final date. And thank you for bearing with us. Okay, I'm going to go back here. I see there's some questions in the chat. Good. Okay. Yes, I am Dev. Great question. We do have some, and I actually have a slide coming up on elector ethics. So just hold on for just 1 second. Okay. And the question was, how do we know that the electors are acting accordingly to the guidelines? Okay. How will funding work? So the funded projects will they will be onboarded the week following the electing decision. So we'll do KYC and grant onboarding the following week, and USDC budgets are paid 100% upfront. Projects asking for 5K or less will get the entire amount upfront, including the Mina portion of the budget. Projects greater than 5K will be presenting on their milestones 3 months after the funding date, and the electors will revisit again and be part of the panel that decides if the remaining funding should be allocated, depending on if they hit their milestones or not. The Mina portion of the funds is directly proportional to the total amount of USDC funding. So in this case, 10K USDC is 1/25th of the 250K. And so you would do 1/25th out of the Mina budget. Mina budget per track is 150K, which comes out to 6K Mina here. This is given the example on the page of a 10K of a project getting funded with 10K. So when we, just so everyone's on the same page, when projects are getting funded, your token agreement that will come through will include the milestones that you've listed. And then it will also include the amount that you're eligible for after presenting on those milestones 3 months down the line. And again, we know there are many people who are running their own businesses or starting their own businesses here. And so the rationale to provide the USDC upfront was that, tokens are under a 12-month lockup. We know that you need those resources to be able to build now. And so the USDC is 100% upfront. Okay, I am Dev. This will kind of answer your question. Every elector has kind of gone through training and onboarding, and from day one, we've been very, very serious about ethics and guidelines when it comes to the voting process. Every elector also signed a token agreement as part of their compensation that agrees to a full list of guidelines, which are summarized here. But from a very kind of like, forget the agreement for a second, where we are hedging a lot of, or we are putting a lot of trust into the elector process as part of cohort 1 for the future of the Mina ecosystem. Every elector kind of brings something different to the table and comes from a different part of, having interacted with Mina in the past. But the core kind of like tenet of being an elector and participating in cohort 1 is really based on trust. And while I'm sure we have much to learn throughout this process, and we will learn, we've really emphasized from day one that there is inherent trust built into the system, and that ZK Ignite is wholly dependent on this system living through. So you'll see here we've asked them to agree to consider all proposals fairly and justly. The allocation decisions are based on the information provided in each proposal, including the comment and discussion section, the evaluation criteria. absolutely no decisions based on personal relationships or business ties. And elector confidentiality, everything that is shared within the track and private channels stays private, because we do feel that there's an important need to be able for electors to be able to discuss things. That being said, there's a zero tolerance policy when it comes to any decisions that will be made based on personal relationships or personal gain. And we've also asked electors to notify us if and abstain if there are any specific relationships in that case. I want to ask a question. Does anyone have any questions on this? Does that answer your question? Okay, Mario, I see Mario says, will electors, maybe did I already answer this one? Will electors ask questions to participants about their voting? I can't remember if I asked this, Mario, so I apologize. But there's a chance that they may ask for further clarification. So please keep an eye on your proposals over the next couple of weeks in case there are questions asked, although it's not formally part of the process. We're kind of aiming to provide as little constraints as possible when it comes to this, but I'm sure we'll have lots of things to learn as we go through it. Okay. And again, I just want to say thank you to all the electors, because there's a lot of kind of trust and responsibility being placed in this relationship. And I know that these decisions aren't easy, especially given there's been so much effort brought into the Mina ecosystem. So we'll do our best as a community to kind of continue to evolve this process as we go and make sure that whatever we learn during this cohort, we'll put it into practice. Okay, really quickly as well, before I pass it over to Janae, maybe I'll stop there. Any other questions? I want to make sure we have as much time or room for questions when it comes to clarity on funding before we move on to this. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, and this is not one of those speak now or forever hold your peace situations. We'll be in Discord throughout this whole process. So any more questions, please come. And our goal is to just make this process as transparent as possible as well. I should also say just one last thing on the ethics slide. Like, again, this situation is based on trust. We've also asked the electors if there are any sort of indications of people trying to game the system in any way, that they let us know. And we also kind of have a zero tolerance policy around that. If there should be just no no discussions in private around the system. I know it doesn't have to be said, but just as a heads up, electors are also watching out for that. Nin says, who are the electors? Mina Foundation mixed with Mina community members. It's all people from the Mina community. There aren't any Mina Foundation team members on the elector group. People have different levels of experience as well as different backgrounds. The process was for cohort 1, reached out to a number of people who fit criteria, mostly being potential end users of ZK apps and end users of developer tooling. So like a lot of developers within the ecosystem, but also people who represent different portions of the Mina community. And then from there, we did a lottery system. So we had our initial outreach, and I know we didn't get everybody from the first round, but that's also, a hint of when I've been saying like participation in cohort 1 will be valued for participation in future cohorts. We intend to continue to grow the elector pool based off of people who are really upholding the core values. But then we did a lottery from there. We recorded the lottery, and then we sent out the lottery to all of the electors who had indicated interest. And then the electors from there agreed to come on board. So there's a multiple step process. We're not going to release elector names or informations en masse just we think it's better to have it be anonymous, but the process is from within the community. Did that answer your question? Cool. Are there any, I see Chiro asks, are there any response or conclusions of electors on the proposal? The conclusion will be voting. Given the kind of volume that we've had, we thought about having other feedback or or potentially like scoring mechanisms, but given kind of the volume that we've gotten and the kind of like slightly unexpected but amazing now work ahead that electors have ahead, voting is going to be the main feedback. But I'm sure there will be other opportunities, and we can kind of take that to Discord or brainstorm on ways to, if you're interested in more feedback around how to continue to evolve ahead of the next cohort if you didn't get funded. We're very keen to like think about a way to facilitate that. Okay, I'm gonna keep us moving here. But if you think of other questions, either on this call, feel free to put them in the chat or put them in the Discord. And again, any feedback is also welcome throughout the process. This is something that we've been thinking about hard, but at the same time, releasing it into the wild for the first time. So as we all know, there are definitely things that we haven't considered. So appreciate just everyone experimenting with us. Okay, Mina improvement proposals. I just wanted to give this a shout because we've just written a blog on it from Mina Foundation, and there's some really exciting things coming through the pipeline. What are Mina improvement proposals? I have it on the page here, so I'm just going to go for it. They're the main mechanism for proposing new features to the protocol itself. There's a current MIP that's been live. It's called Kimchi, and it proposes a change to Mina's proof system, which is amazing. You can see the link in the blog post for details if someone could drop the link in the chat. The entire MIP process, or something called the MIP process, if you'd like, is driven by the community and is meant to be highly participatory and transparent as the protocol continues to evolve. This MIP specifically is in a draft phase. We're planning a review phase to kick off next week that will include a community call. So the MIP authors can discuss it with the community and provide feedback, comments on the content of the MIP, very similar to how the EIP calls go. So this is our version of that. And as Mina is evolving, there's going to be many, many more of these. If it gets approved, the MIP editor group will then hold an on-chain vote next month. So many more details to come. And if you choose to go into Mina's GitHub, you'll also see some other MIPs that are being proposed. And I think it's super exciting. And I don't want to spill too many beans, but if all of the things that we're doing here, I think, are going to complement the on-chain developments very, very soon. So I think there's a perfect storm aligning here, and everybody, I would really encourage you to kind of also participate in this process outside of ZK Ignite, as you know, we're really trying to embody the powered by participants ethos of the protocol itself. Okay, I'm going to pass it. I'm just going to check the chat one more time for any questions. Okay, great. I'm going to pass it over to Janae to take it from here. And yeah, again, just want to say thanks to everybody for making it happen.
Thank you, Will. So we have like 15 or so minutes, and I wanted to dive into our feedback. So with feedback, we're going to be dividing it into a couple of parts. And the first part is going to be what we're doing right now. And then later this week, you're going to get access to a survey that we hope all of you can take the time out and just, help us help you, essentially. And then this first one, I think we're only going to get a couple of questions in. Honestly, even if we get one, that would be perfectly okay. But I just want you to participate. So I don't mind if you, raise your hand to speak or even write it out in the chat, but we're going to just answer a couple of questions. And I would really appreciate a lot of honesty. And yes, Yasin just said feedback is king. So yes, please just make sure you share with us. And this is a great space to do so, because the next forums are going to be more, written feedback. And like I love to talk. So I think talking is always an awesome opportunity to share how I'm feeling. Will, could you go to the next slide, please? All right, so the first question I want to have us all look at and think about is which gathering provided a lot of guidance, insight, or value, and just talking about why. Now, if Will, could you go to the next slide? If you're like, Hey, Janae, I don't even remember week 1, week 2, whatever week we did. I kind of outlined it here. So week 1, we had our kickoff. Week 2, we did proposals, and you can read the rest for yourself. So we can start off. Please raise your hand or to participate, or just jot it in the chat. But I would love to know, the question is, what gathering you felt brought a value to your overall journey? Everyone's like, I wasn't prepared for this. um, but I would appreciate any sort of. Okay, so we had Patrick in the chat saying 4, 5, and 6. These had nice substance and very useful feedback afterwards. We have Zen saying week 4, ZCAP architecture was stellar, a great guide. Loved hearing the VCs present specifically about the crypto industry. Awesome. Anyone else want to share their? Oh, I see another one. We have 2 and 2, 4, and 6, and week 4. So I see a lot of 4s, which was our ZK app architecture. Oh, okay. Week 2, we have, yep, 2 weeks, 2, 4, and 6. Awesome. Well, could you go to the next question? So I think we are in like a nice consensus over, the value, but what gatherings did not provide helpful guidance, insight, or value? And let's talk about why. Definitely throw that in the chat. Or like I said, call it out if you want to just hear yourself talk a little bit. Oh, well, could you go back to the list? I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'm kind of curious. I think last week, yeah. So I'm wondering, like last week, we had almost 5 hours, which was amazing. But I also got some feedback that I heard that it could be kind of hard to give feedback in such a short period of time. So I'm kind of wondering, like, how, if you had a chance to present, was it helpful to you? What you would have preferred, or ooh, I see. Matei is coming in with an interesting suggestion there. Can we get a funding notification from Discord bot? I like that idea, but it could be a roller coaster of emotion. Anyways, I'm curious what people thought about last week, because it was amazing, I think, from my perspective, to see all of these ideas. And also, I think it's really valuable to get that recorded and can be referenced. But how did people feel?
I really love what I am Dev just dropped in the chat, but I don't want to disrupt our conversation about week 5 as well. Breakout rooms for week 5. So maybe doing it on a smaller scale. Okay, I like that. And allow for a longer presentation time. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a solid idea.
Yeah, definitely. That was very short. Yeah, let's talk about Gather. I want to know if people like Gather too. Okay, more of a connective mechanism.
I think that's a good question around Janae. Maybe if you could read out I am Dev's first ZK. see how if other people feel that way.
Oh yeah. So one of the things that I highlighted and Will just called out is I am devastating. I'm missing some general ZK talk, why ZK and how how the ZK is used for Mina. I've been in ZK cohort before, and they had this at the first week. So yeah, that's an incredible call out. Just starting from the basics. George, go for it.
I had another question. Is it okay? Or do you want to wait?
No, go for it.
Okay. All right. So let's imagine that for a second, like all of you you're the ones that are owning this program. Okay. So you're the ones like deciding on the content. You have complete power to, invent more topics, invite whatever guests, create workshops, have breakout rooms, have discussions, you have the power. And then if you had to make like one suggestion, something that you'd love to have happening during ZK Ignite 2, what would it be? And why would you want that?
Yeah. Will, could you click to the next question? Next one? Yeah. Thank you, Dor. Yeah, that's a great moment for all of us to kind of put our heads in space to put our heads in.
Yes, Mario. Oh, you're on mute. Still can't hear you, sorry. Still no, sorry.
Hi there.
Hello.
Now? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Sorry for making you wait. What I would have liked to have is the architecture sessions quite more earlier in the process, because it went after the drafts, etc. So I think all the architecture sessions were quite good. I felt that we have quite a lot more to learn, because all this is a big change as to how we usually work with blockchains. So it's quite a mental shift from the traditional blockchains architectures. So I think that would be very good to have that at the very beginning, and to have more than one session. I think I would have benefited a lot if that would have happened, because I would have done a first draft, much better one, and would have to refine my proposal in a much better way if I had that opportunity. I see that some of the participants here have some experience, or a lot of experience with Mina altogether, but for those which are new to the Mina protocol, like ours, it's a hard time to go through all the documentation and on all these mental changes. So that's what I would have liked. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. We've gotten similar feedback as we've been doing hackathons recently, and for people coming to Mina for the first time, that we call it like the Mina mindset of like, what are some of the advantages to the chain that, like, you know, off-chain computation is a very big change compared to normal blockchain architecture. And as a very beginning, I think that's a really valuable insight to take to next time.
Yeah, I think just when I hear everyone's feedback, I definitely have to think about kind of like that student perspective and coming into this with the zero background or zero understanding and moving forward. So thank you all for that. Yes, co-learning. And we have a couple more minutes left, so I think we could do the last question. It's pretty simple. The question is, well, could you go to the next slide, please? Next one, not that one. Yeah. I would love to know from everyone, what advice would you give to future cohorts? You are the ones doing this, you're the ones participating. So what would you tell someone who is like, hey, I'm interested in cohort 2? You know, what's information that they should know before going in and taking this journey? Uh-oh, no one has a single thing that they would advise. Oh, someone said start early. Oh, prototype first before proposing. Get in there and have fun. Carpe diem.
Yeah,
Well,
I love IamDev's suggestion there, adding a related video materials and for each week. I think that's definitely something we should do.
yeah. Thank you. Get enough sleep. Well, thank you all for, these beautiful gems. What's going to happen in the next couple of days alongside receiving the links to a new survey or an additional survey that you can just take your time, dive into, and kind of answer those questions at your leisure. We're going to take that information and just make things better for everyone within our ecosystem. So thank you all for your time. I'm going to let Will close us out.
Cool. Thanks, Janae. And yeah, just to kind of like follow up on that, I would say, like, other than filling out the survey, because we're like everything that you can share at this point, we are very grateful for it, just because cohort 2 is around the corner and it's fresh and real and valuable feedback. So thanks in advance for just any time that you can spare filling out that survey. And then, yeah, over the next couple of weeks, we don't have a gathering next week, but we're going, the winner's announcement will be April 5th. And then we'll also be thinking about other ways in the few weeks to kind of like continue to capture some of this momentum that you all and we all have built. And we'll be adding more and more things to kind of the calendar as we go. So yeah, just want to say on behalf of myself and the team, just thank you again for the effort and the energy and the generosity that you've brought to the cohort so far. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how things progress. And above all, good luck over the next couple of weeks. And we'll see you on the Discord. All right, thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks to the crew on YouTube.